In this matrix, two very different candidates in very troubling times are being presented as our choices to hopefully navigate us to better times. We've been here before, many times throughout American history, but somehow this is a little different because of the times. With these two very different options on display for us to put our faith in, fear is strategically harvested, used, and awakened in all of us. And it's through this fabricated fear that we are manipulated and pulled into distinctive directions. This fear is dividing us, confusing us, pushing us toward positions, making us form strong opinions, some of them rational, some of them completely illogical. In this reality, we are made to believe that through this system and through one of these presented choices is our solution for better days. Not because it's necessarily true, but because we are made to believe that, and we hope so. As we align ourselves into teams and schools of thought, this election moves closer to another administration. A new face, a new personality, and a new look to front the same power structure that we never see. I've been watching the election closely, but I refrain from posting too many opinions publicly. I don't put too much stock in politics these days anyway. Regardless, there is a feeling that this is one of the worst elections in US history, and for many reasons, I tend to agree. What we're seeing is an illusion of choice and a puppet show. First of all, even though there's other people running for president, several other competent people out there in our society, we are made to believe that these are our only two options, and a vote anywhere else would be a waste of time. This is largely because we're under many forms of mind control, and we're institutionalized to obey the system. The choice we have is not a choice, it's an illusion. The oligarchy already choose what they want, then tilt the table to make it so, then set up the infrastructure for things to play itself out. And the several million of us just sit back, rendered helpless to these two options that no one really seems to like. So I never bothered to comment on what I feel is irrelevant. I actually used to write about politics more often years ago, but I've grown to a new understanding of things, and I learned how things really work. Interesting things happen when you expand your realm of knowledge and elevate your thinking. I mean, from top to bottom. When you eat right, avoid toxic foods that they lay before us that pollute our minds, stupefy us, and deaden our senses. When you meditate and raise your vibration, and when you cut back on TV, daily distraction and media disinformation, and the day-to-day programming and brainwashing we're inundated with, and then question all that's laid out before you instead of just digesting it, which is what they want you to do. And instead of repeating things, analyzing things from a clear-headed, unbiased, researched, and well-informed perspective, you just might find yourself waking up and simultaneously distancing yourself from the misinformed majority. With all that done, it may become plain to see that many people are going back and forth about Donald Trump versus Hillary Clinton, and it's consuming a lot of energy. Many of us are caught in a hamster wheel of one side trying to convince the other that of two evils, the other candidate is far worse. And therefore, the lesser of these two evils is best. One of the premier psychological traps laid out on us is that because of all the sensationalism into who they are as people, not all, but some of us are forgetting to keep the issues first. We're emotionally compromised to be for or against one of them personally. Some people are forgetting that in addition to being someone qualified to represent the country, they should be promising us something that earns the vote. This is what the presidential election is now reduced to. No matter what you choose to believe or which side you fall on, at this point, the world has pretty much already decided that neither is above reproach. But that worst candidate, according to the latest polls, is Donald Trump. I partially disagree. The problem threatening the future leadership of our country is not Hillary or Donald Trump. The real problem is we, the people, when the vast majority of us don't know the game. Again, no matter who you lean towards, there's still a big problem. Even though Trump, The perceived worst of two evils in this election has angered, insulted, or repulsed scores of groups and people in the world at this point. The race is still pretty close. That should tell you something. On one hand, you have a candidate that represents much of the corruption in politics that people want to emancipate the country from. Many people feel that she works for the establishment and not the people. Many people do not like or trust her. And with her as the front runner, the only other option is a wild card. Okay, I know many of us are locked into this system, and I don't want to ruffle any feathers or make anyone upset. And I have a lot of friends on both sides of the fence. But let's just get serious for one moment, and let's be real and let's talk truth. Donald Trump should not be president and is not a leader. But that doesn't matter. Donald Trump is part of the mass deception and confusion. Trump's support never came from a place of logic and reason anyway. It came from an emotional place. A certain percentage of Americans are caught in the grips of a cult of personality. I don't, but if you choose to still play this game and believe in this system, well, all the signs using logic give Trump a thumbs down. And the reason is he allowed his temperament, personal life, and bad rhetoric to outweigh his good. And with all that he did and said, the media ganged up on him and helped knock him down in the polls. Either way, popular opinion will say he shouldn't be the one. He has no real experience in government or politics. He does not have a history of public service. He never showed a convincing understanding of any of the issues. He is not the businessman he purports himself to be and is merely the beneficiary of an inherited fortune who's carried his name to the forefront of public discussion. He never really introduces a plan and just says things are going to be great or that we're going to be looking into this or that. He flip-flops and is pathologically dishonest on record, not necessarily because he's lying, but just prone to chicanery and insistent on his own perspectives. He drowned out any good idea he ever had, if he had any, by suggesting controversial and completely ridiculous ideas. Like building a wall to block out Mexicans and banning Muslims, which is quite obviously unconstitutional and grossly discriminatory. He's xenophobic, bigoted, misogynistic, impulsive, petty, and not good for the image of any nation's leadership. I mean, you could really just keep going with this. His wife, which would be the first lady, has nudie pictures. And with the release of his lewd and offensive comments about assaulting women, people will keep defending him and start telling you how bad Hillary is. The age of petty moral equivalencies. As a counter-argument, people will keep bringing up Benghazi, the deleted emails, and all of that. Not because Americans truly know anything about the logistics of any of that, but because their bases and cult groups, because yes, that's what they are, have been regurgitating this stuff all year long.
So we finally have this God that's gonna come down and help us all.
You just referred to Trump as a god.
Yeah, he is. Well, like she said, Jesus, then Trump.
Oh my God!
The truth is, Donald Trump is part of the same team and the same system, but is covertly being played as a long-shot underdog, which is a brilliant covert strategy. He'll carry this group, or movement of sorts, well after the election. Again, he represents something and there is a psychological attachment to Trump, not a rational one. In an ever-diversifying world that is getting more and more politically correct and fake, Donald Trump represents an in-your-face, unapologetic blast of rich, dominant society patriarchy, restoring order to the all-American psychological status quo. Just calling things as they are. Idealistically, a lot of people in this country are wrong, driven by dark energy, and want to be wrong openly, without acknowledging it as wrong. People want to live motivated by negative ideology, justified and rationalized as right and truth. People are feeding something inside themselves, and Trump is merely a demagogue and a reflection of some of the people themselves. He's a demagogue savior for people who are trapped in their illusions of this dimensional experience. And people are being played by the system. It isn't just Trump. Many American citizens are trapped in the psychological mechanisms of tribalism and believe that kicking Mexicans out of the country is a good thing that will help us. Certain entities brainwash the people to think so. A people who do not acknowledge that their ancestors were the outsiders, acquired these lands illegitimately by force, and then set up these rules of law with which to make things legal or illegal. We're also brainwashed to distrust and hate Muslims because this is all perpetrated, and it becomes increasingly difficult for your average American to process what they're constantly seeing and hearing on TV. From corporate-owned sources they should not trust, but do religiously anyway. Many don't understand that the powers that be are involved with all these spectacles of Islamic terrorism. The powers that be don't want us to ever know what the real issues are, and they don't want us united and working together against those real problems. They make fake ones, keep us distracted, keep groups of citizens working against other citizens, fortifying hatred, and they resurrect demagogues to champion those fake issues. So what are the real issues? Well, they never tell you that there's an agenda for war. They never mention Monsanto or the many corporate crimes against humanity. The media is corporate owned, as are many of our politicians. No one ever speaks about Fukushima or the likelihood that the Pacific Ocean is dead. And yes, this has permanently affected agriculture and the food industry. Nuclear accidents, oil spills, and pollution due to corporate industries are literally killing the planet. No one really seems to know or care because if they don't put it on TV, it magically doesn't exist. And you never hear about this or see it on corporate-owned news because industries don't want to change anything that may affect profit. So our Earth is sacrificed for industry. No one talks about US foreign policies that cause imbalances and instigate war and terrorism. No one speaks about geoengineering, secretly implemented without public consent. No one speaks about GMOs or the truth about vaccines or the truth and real objectives in Western medicine. The healthcare industry is not set up for cures and healing, but to manufacture and regulate sickness and disease, to control life and sell drugs. No one talks about the Federal Reserve or the banking system, which is designed to work against us. No one talks about the many forms of black extermination, from medical to geographical warfare. Many people, ignorant of all of this and institutionalized, protested Colin Kaepernick's protest of kneeling during the anthem without the awareness that aside from police brutality explained off by the establishment, there is a smorgasbord of many other things undisclosed to us that many people might want to start kneeling for, or perhaps have a seat.
So we got the water poisoning in Flint, we got the water poisoning in Washington, D.C., we got the vaccines all targeting black communities. And that's not all. Look at the cancer industry in places like Detroit. And we've covered this extensively on Natural News. The cancer industry, it is a racket that they have predatory business practices that target black men and black women because they know that those people will have more aggressive cancers because of their skin color, which blocks ultraviolet light from the sun, which generates vitamin D. So the black communities tend to be vitamin D deficient. And as a result, they are more lucrative to the cancer industry. And so these predominantly white-owned cancer organizations, for-profit businesses, they set up shop in low-income black communities. Then they offer free screening so they can falsely diagnose black people with cancer so they can make a fortune treating them with chemotherapy that they don't even need.
From radioactive milk, poisonous foods, or suspicious and mysterious high amounts of lead in the water implemented into several black communities. Protesting protesters is quite audacious, to say the least. They lie to us incessantly, hide things from us, and keep us ignorant and blissfully patriotic. No one talks about anything that truly matters because they control you with this. Americans are in the grips of socially engineered ignorance, and now many of us are obsessed about the election, based on romanticized opinions and imaginary possibilities. So for those for Hillary or for Trump, that doesn't bother me. I understand how many people feel, why they feel that way, and I respect people's prerogatives. People want things to be better and are only doing what they feel is right. We're made to believe that this system works, and people are voting according to their belief set. All understood. What does bother me is the zeal some people have while immersed in politics, or the psychological reasons for justifying what the conscious mind may know is wrong, and the cultish support being thrown behind candidates. If you're passionately and zealously cheering for either candidate, that may be indicative of a problem. It's a sign that people may be mired in delusions. There is no solitary political savior offered to us by the establishment that is going to waltz in and fix all of our problems. Things are already going according to a plan, just not one you or I have anything to do with. These people have entities behind them, pulling the strings and presenting the puppet show. Let me tell you guys a story about the day my preschool class and I were going to meet the Easter Bunny. Our teacher was talking about it for weeks. On the day we were finally set to meet the Easter Bunny, we did all sorts of crafts that day. We colored eggs and did several Easter-themed activities. Finally, the teacher asked us to begin lining up to go downstairs for story time. But before going down, she suggested that we leave a carrot on the table in the center of the room, just in case the Easter Bunny came when we were gone. We went downstairs and she read us a story. We may have had a nap as well. Finally, we were brought back upstairs, and then when we were led back into our main room, the teacher exclaimed, "The Easter Bunny came! Look, guys!" We all looked at the carrot on the table and there were a few bites chomped out. All the kids squealed in delight. However, I was the last born of a few siblings a lot older than me. Some of my siblings were teenagers when I was born, so it was going to take a little bit more than that to get me. And I remember raising my hand and I asked the teacher if anyone else was in the room when we were gone. She, of course, lied to me and said, "Oh no, no one was ever here." And I remember not being okay with that in an indescribable way. I raised my hand again and very shy and politely I asked why we couldn't have just stayed in the classroom to see him. I honestly don't remember her next response that explained it away, but she said something to blow it off again. However, I do remember raising my hand an awkward third time and the teacher looking straight at me and I at her. We locked eyes and I put my hand down, almost psychically making an agreement of sorts to just shut up and let the class go with it. It seems that paradigm is still in place on a larger scale. Some have themselves convinced that Trump is some sort of American hero. Others feel that Hillary has capable hands and despite many opinions, she may be the most competent for the job. Either way, we are made to feel our votes are going towards something that gives us a degree of control. But intellectuals really in the know understand that the executive branch is more of a managerial position and a liaison between the people and the elites. We just pick someone we like better to give us the same agenda with a slightly different flavoring. And what really is in control is something other than what we are seeing or allowed to know. Truth seekers have to know that the masses will shut you down and sometimes hate you for telling them the Easter Bunny isn't real, that television lies and things aren't what they seem. So instead of fighting what you can't compete with, just know the truth. Never join the madness and keep thinking about real solutions to real problems. What's true? Well, the executive branch has long been compromised since the 60s, and there is no solitary political savior. The political savior we are waiting for is us. We, the people, have to wake up from these systems of oppression that are imprisoning our minds and our true potential. True change is not reverting back to a satanic but romanticized time where one group is favored over others. True change is not doing the same things and repeating historical mistakes. True change and progression comes from first telling the truth, knowing what it is, adapting to it, and finding systems and ways in which we all can grow and improve socially, economically, and spiritually. So as you vote, do as you wish, but understand it is a formality and there is much more to know and much more to do. And after you walk away from the voting booth, know that the person you need to worry about as far as resolve, focus, morality, discretion, and clarity of mind the most is you. Not things you're made to believe will fix the world for you.